Welcome back, T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Dark Side. We're doing part two with Captain Dave Marquette. We were talking fishing so much and tarpon fishing. The last segment and the last show we did, we didn't even get to touch on any hunting, and there's a bunch of that. You know, I was talking earlier the other day about how Dave kind of turned me on to hunting. I was getting into it. He invited me up to Alabama. I had some really good clients that were up there that became friends of Dave's, and just kind of turned me on to the Smith family. Just dynamite people, fun to be around, and like blowing stuff up. But you know, Dave had me pretty scared the first time I went up there. I was driving up there. Of course, we're leaving at Old Dark Hunter after a trip and towing the trailer up with 9 four-wheelers on it, and so at least we had a couple of them to run, and we got up there, and it was go, 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 hunt, 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 in a really neat place. I think at the time it was probably somewhere in the 4,000 acres, it seemed like. It was both sides of the road, the White Oak, one of my favorite stands that I was able to help you get a deer out of. That was a funny story. David sat a little bit later and everybody else, and the brother-in-law, you know, it's all family that lives out there. We had this dog, it was a Catahoula, and it wasn't friendly. And every day it would bark like it was going to kill you. And I mean, you just had to basically kind of ignore it. Well, this day Dave shot a deer. The farmer says, hey, get in my truck. We're going to go meet Dave out there. And of course, he lets his dog in the truck. And this is the same dog that's been barking at me for a week and a half wanting to kill me. And now he wants to be my buddy. I forget his name, Frank or something.
Frank.
He was crazy. He'd be looking running away from you, barking, you know, "Roar!" and going the other way. He was a crazy dog, but man, he found that deer, didn't he? That was a beautiful. I believe it was a 9-point.
Yeah.
And those were some of the things early into hunting that Dave really helped me with. Learning to sit at dark. You know, most people tell you dark. Everybody's dark is different. And I've learned that over the years, whether it's fishing or hunting. Some people want to be in before they can't see. Well, dark in hunting, there is a time, but most people are when I can't see through my scope. You can't identify the deer, time to get out of there.
Yep.
Well, I actually came in early one time, and it was a morning, and that was one of the things you'd push to me also. The longer you can sit those midday deer, sometimes that big buck moves midday. That deer you shot at the White Oak had to be at like 11 o'clock that day because I was already out. We were coming to get you. I probably got out at 10. Boom, it went off, and you shot, I mean, a man. He was a mature buck. Really nice one. And quite a few of them I got to share with you there. And since then, been hunting quite a bit there. But one of the first trips there, Dave was telling me, Mahoney, he knew right off the bat, you got to be by the book, you know, don't be shining your flashlight. Well, little do I know, he's got a son that's about 20 years old that me and him kind of clicked a little bit. So I let Dave go on to bed, and the kid, Bass, I'm telling on you now. And of course, just like I want y'all to know, Butler Boyd, this segment brought to you by Butler Boyd. This is not an omission of guilt. Don't believe everything you hear. And some of the names have been changed to protect the guilty. I'll leave it at that. So Bass tells me, hey, my brother-in-law wants a deer. And I go, really? When do we get to get the deer? He said, how about tonight after the old guys go to sleep? And I go, sounds good to me. So I'll meet you over here at this time. So I had a dually. I had a fiberglass cover on it. We went out there, and, you know, there was a couple of them standing there, and he said to me, I need to get one of those. And I said, well, how about 2? And he said, you want to shoot 2? And I said, yeah, I want to shoot 2 with 1 bullet, see if I can do it. So I waited, and they came crossing, and when they got right here, I went boom, and both of them fell. So we drove over there in the dually. This is family property over 20 years ago. And he goes, what are we going to put them on? You know, you can't put them on your truck. I said, I'll just throw them on the back cover. You remember that, Dave? You were sleeping. I threw them on the back cover. The tonneau cover was closed, fiberglass. I drove it to the shop. We cleaned 2 deer. I rinsed it off. I went to bed. Next day, I got my cover lifted up because I keep my clothes, my hunting stuff inside there. Somebody found blood on the bed rail. So blood, just to let you people know, it will go down and back up and down on a bed rail. So make sure you pop your cover if you happen to throw deer on the back of the truck, because that blood will work its way in there. I'll never forget that look. You saw wet blood and you looked over at me like, where'd that come from? You remember that? That was a good one, huh?
You know, folks, if you listened real close to Mike when he started this story, he used the term omission of guilt rather than admission of guilt. Mike, you know, you got to listen
There's
close.
a reason.
Butler and Boyd.
Butler and Boyd.
Butler and Boyd.
That's it. That's our sponsor on this show. But some good times. And, you know, when Dave, I remember this, Dave's alligator hunted. First of all, Dave, shoot your number out real quick. Give them a number they can get a hold of you if they want to go guiding, catch a tarpon, catch a gator, catch a snook. What is it?
813-455-3056. I'd love to take you.
And Dave does it all. Frog gigging in an airboat, alligator hunting in an airboat. And I remember when Dave got him an airboat, started really pushing the gator hunts and just wanting me to tell him everything I knew. You remember that?
I
Coming
do.
here asking all questions. And what did I tell you?
Nothing. Go learn.
Just like you told me about Big Snook, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
And I'll tell you something, it didn't take long. Dave was at the top of the board. I'd say a year or two, and you were whacking 12-footers every year, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean,
You hunted them all your life, I know
right.
that.
I mean, you know, the thing about alligator hunting, anybody can kill an alligator illegally. You know,
I agree.
Anybody can do that. Killing one by the book is a whole different affair.
You're right.
And, you know, Florida, at that time, Florida had a real nuisance alligator issue. They had limited harvest for so long that alligators were in every body of water around. It's not the case anymore, but it used to be. But alligator is still the only animal in Florida that if you get caught breaking a rule hunting alligators, you can't hunt alligators again.
Yep.
So, you know, they take it pretty serious,
Well,
and it's a challenge. I like the challenge.
Speaking of that, that was the whole reason why the Miller's place went down, right? The world's richest tarpon tournament.
Okay, so
that guy
Yep.
was doing something shenanigans with alligators.
tags, with alligator tags.
He
Yes.
lost all, and that's when he got new ownership on that
Correct.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, you never know all of the facts,
Right.
but certainly
He ain't there no more. That's
correct.
a fact.
That's a fact. And you know, he was his own legend in Boca Grande. Like I say, since there has been Boca Grande, since you got Gasparilla Sound. I mean, named after a pirate. Since there's been Boca Grande, it's been a den of pirates and thieves and ne'er-do-wells and scoundrels. It still is. That's part of the magic of it, you know. And you know, I wish I had a $20 bill for all of the wacky tobacco that's come in through Boca Grande Pass, or you know, it's
Really,
just,
the whole state of Florida there.
Exactly. But I'm just saying that it's just that kind of a place. It is.
And that's what happened down there, and it was something to do with alligator hunting. How'd you do this year, alligator hunting?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I've been in Louisiana most of the alligator season. I will run a couple of alligator hunts in the last 2 weeks of the season, but when I've had them on the books, it's either been so windy that you couldn't give people a fair chance at it. And I'm one of the guys, if we don't have a fair chance at success, I'm not going to take your money.
Well, and that's something else to think about. I'm not sure exactly. It shouldn't be too much longer till we put this show out. But anybody having a tough time getting your tags, filling them, you're having a problem getting alligators, give this guy a call. He'll definitely take you out on your tags. There's a, that's the only thing that I'm aware of that is like that in the state as far as taking stuff is the tags. You have to be with the tag. So,
correct,
Dave, the owner of that tag is always going to be on the boat.
Got to be on the boat. Yep. They're non-transferable. I have private land alligator tags so that if somebody wants to go alligator hunting and was unsuccessful in the lottery, then get in touch with me and I can take you to get an alligator.
Is that all year,
yes,
Dave?
It is all year.
So you could, the wetlands hunts is what he's talking about. It's private land. Really neat way to hunt them.
Yep.
Fun way to hunt them. The rules are a little bit different on wetlands, yep. So there's some other things he can, and you can call him and he'll talk to you all about that and find out how you want to do it. And but he's done quite a few of them. What's your biggest gator, Dave?
Biggest gator was killed by Teresa Giampia, and it was 12 feet 10 and a half.
Monster.
And then Teresa and I got that alligator in my airboat by ourselves.
Wow.
And then
how'd you get that to the ramp?
With literally with 1.5 inches of freeboard.
So you put it in the boat.
We had to put it in the boat. Yeah. I tried to tow it and I couldn't.
Yeah.
It was too big. And then Rudy Blair got the next largest, and that was 12 foot 10 and a quarter.
And I'll tell you something about these gators. When people say 12 foot, if you haven't been around them, and it's funny because I've taken some Canadian people, friends of mine up there that come down here and hunt. Matter of fact, my buddy killed this one. This is a Canada gator. It's or the guy from Canada killed it. It's a wetlands hunt, private property. I told him I'd try to get him a 10-footer. This one's pushing about 9'8", 9'6". Beautiful gator. I think he's 9'8", something like that. Anyway, when he came up, that guy was juiced. I mean,
oh yeah.
You don't realize that a 9-foot gator, this thing's laying up here all nice and, skinned out. But when a 9-footer's about the beginning of that problem gator.
Correct.
That's when they got some weight to them. They got some courage to them. But a 12-footer is a whole different animal.
Every foot of alligator is twice the alligator.
I agree.
A 10-foot alligator is twice the alligator a 9 is. An 11 is twice the alligator a 10 is. And there are not many 12-footers
left. Really, you're right.
But there's still twice the alligator an 11-foot alligator is.
Yeah. And I was talking to my buddy Mike Gifford, which you're familiar with. Me and Mike has hunted quite a bit.
Mike and I go way back.
And Mike is actually, I always tell people my biggest gator's in the store here, 13.8. But really, Mike Gifford, the guide, is the one that put me on that gator. My personal biggest is in the mid-12s. I've only gotten one over 13, which is a monster, and he actually guided me on it. A great alligator hunter, but he moved up to Eufaula and he was talking to me about the hunts up there, and we've really got it kind of good here. They're so scarce that a week and 2 weeks before, people are running hard, pushing them, and they don't understand that once this thing starts getting chased, he ain't staying up no more. It just makes it tougher. They actually put game cams on slides because there's not that many alligators there in Alabama. So, yeah, we got it good here. They are everywhere. That's for sure. I hope you finish up with a good year anyway.
Well, I got a call this week or last week that I got a call from the Secretary of the Interior's office, Washington, D.C., asking if I would be interested in hosting the director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service for an alligator hunt.
Wow.
And she is the first female director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, an appointment of President Trump's, and she's a woman of color. I am excited about this, and we're going to go on Saturday.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You think
And
you
and
think
I'm not.
I can get on that boat?
And we're not cutting a corner. She's going to do it.
You think I can get on that boat
I
and
don't know.
watch?
I don't know.
Are they asking everybody's name that's going
Oh,
to be on? I
yeah.
don't go.
Oh,
Background checks don't do good with me.
Yeah, I survived the Homeland Security background check. I didn't tell them I knew you.
Yeah, you weren't wearing a Mahoney shirt when they were talking to you.
Yeah,
were you?
you know me, buddy. I wear Mahoney shirts.
That's for sure. Man.
I'm proud of it.
Well, we're having a good time here. We're talking fishing and hunting. We got another segment coming up. We're going to finish it up. We'll be right back. We're back. T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Dark Side with my buddy Captain Dave Marquette. We've been talking fishing and hunting and alligator hunting and just a good time. I know you got a hunt coming up. I wish you the best of luck on it for sure. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is getting kids involved. We had talked a little bit on the break, and getting kids involved with the outdoors, teaching them. I know myself, and I'm going to let you go with this, but I was told a few years ago, and it doesn't always necessarily mean a kid because everybody doesn't have that opportunity. But, of course, you can volunteer and all that kind of stuff too. But if you can turn somebody on that doesn't fish or doesn't hunt, and you can take them on a hunt to get them involved with outdoor activities, get them involved with hunting or fishing, you've done your job as a sportsman. If all of us brought one in per year, I think we'd see that a lot. And I think the kids are going to be the ones that are opened up the most for it.
Things have changed so much, Mike. I'm a Tampa native, and you are as well. I went to dear old Hillsborough High School, Central Avenue, Tampa. I graduated in 1968. I'm about as old as dirt. Not quite,
they have
but
sliced
almost.
bread back then?
No,
it was
no,
unsliced, yeah.
No, it didn't have sliced bread. And during October, November, and December, I had the very first lifted big tire truck on the streets in Tampa. 57 Jeep, overslung, big tires. I had the first one.
How big? How big are the tires?
916 on 12-inch wheels.
That's big tires.
Yeah, it was big tires. First one in Tampa. And I drove that to Hillsborough, and in the back glass every day was a 30-30 rifle and a 16-gauge shotgun at high school. We would never have thought about abusing a weapon there. One of my lifelong best friends, Don Lynn, he did the same thing, and he had a hunting buggy, and they did the same thing in the parking lot. You know, but in those periods of time, I had the opportunity to learn about hunting and fishing and guns and bows and arrows and all that kind of stuff through Boy Scouts and through church groups and through the FWC had youth camping programs.
Yep.
And we just, every year, we go to a youth camp. And what concerns me today about our society is that common sense and practical knowledge is no longer any part of our educational process for our young people. One of the reasons that I have stayed so involved with conservation groups and things like that is because those small groups do embrace the young people. They teach them and train them, and Tampa Bay Watch is an excellent way to educate your young kids about the critical need to have a healthy marine environment and healthy habitat and so forth. But you know, I love to do charters when it's parents or grandparents and kids, and I try to teach what I call the Florida cracker culture, which is, you know, appreciate the land, understand that we have to have clean water, we have to have clean salt water, we can't dump raw sewage. And you know, city of St. Petersburg, if you were the city of St. Petersburg, you would never get out of federal prison.
Oh, no.
If you were the city of Sarasota or Bradenton, you'd be in prison for life for dumping all the pollution they dump into Tampa Bay. And, you know, we all love, well, not everybody. Most people love Disney World. But the truth of the matter is Disney World's built on the Green Swamp, which is the water artery for all of South Florida. And every time somebody flushes a toilet in Disney World, it goes down the Kissimmee Valley. And it ends up in Lake Okeechobee. And Okeechobee's is got a terrible problem with muck accumulation and nitrogen and phosphorus. And that's what creates red tide. So I try my best to enlighten kids about the need to care about our Florida. Because if we don't, if your generation's different than my generation, and his generation is different than yours and mine as well.
Right.
If we don't, if we can't plant the seed to care about what happens in Florida, the people that don't care will rule this state, because there is an enormous number of people that come to Florida to rape and pillage and take the money and go somewhere else with it.
And leave. And we've all seen, even with the fishing community, I've seen guys doing, like we were talking earlier, I've seen people running tournament circuits that you don't even hear of anymore.
Right.
They're gone.
Right.
Whether they got arrested or,
Well,
but they took the money and ran.
Take the money and run. And, you know, and it is, when we were off camera, we were talking about some of the places that are not under a closure right now for redfish, snook, and trout, that are just north of here, and how every guide is judged on whether or not they kill a full limit of fish for everybody on the boat every day. And you see it, I see it in some of our neighboring states. How many did you catch? Oh, we caught 2 coolers full. And
A limit.
A limit, right. And the sad part about that is that in West Central Florida, with COVID and with all of the disruption of normal life that brought, everybody is fishing.
Yeah.
And so unless we change how we manage our marine species, we will never, ever go to a generous daily catch limit. I have lobbied in Tallahassee for years to set the size limits on our fish so that the females in the population at least breed twice.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
Yep.
What do you think about the closure right now that we have here in Tampa Bay, in this area, all the way
Right.
down to Sarasota, where we can't keep snook, trout, and reds? Do you think they should open them?
Not now, not yet. And I'll tell you why. Because we're not catching juvenile fish, which means that there hasn't, the spawning biomass, the number of females in all of the fish that represent what's in Tampa Bay, have not been able to reproduce themselves enough to where you can go somewhere and catch 20, 15-inch redfish. Or, now snook is the exception. There are a lot of 20-inch male snook in certain places.
How about slots and oversized? Are you seeing those fish now?
You know, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have seen some big redfish move into the mouth of Tampa Bay. So I am more encouraged about that than I have been, because there has been, all the way across the bay, there has been a dramatic reduction in redfish. Now, there is a big school at Weeden Island. They never leave. They get hammered 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There used to be 3 of those schools at Tarpon Key.
And they're gone.
And they're decimated.
Yeah.
And that's poaching. That's somebody sneaking in there and killing. They're never going to miss 1 or 2 of these big redfish, take them home, we'll blacken them. But the truth of the matter is, I think we're another year or 2 years away from reopening in Tampa Bay.
Anything? Snook?
You,
Even?
you know,
I just think that we ought to have something, Dave.
oh, I don't disagree with you, but it's not redfish yet.
And why not go to a per boat limit?
Going to have to do that. Going to have, Mike.
know.
When you were talking earlier about the last days of the snook slaughter, where people were just putting folks on the
Hits
boat.
him in the heart. The snook
No, I'm just
slaughter.
saying yeah, well, it was. And you know, they would put people, they would stack a boat. Now we're talking, you know, we hear all this stuff about stacking the Supreme Court.
I've stacked a boat.
I know you have. I understand that. And so, and what you're talking about, again, you were talking about some of the states you visit around here, where the guide will not take you in until
Yep.
he's got a limit
Yep.
for everybody on the boat.
Those are my buddies.
Those, I understand that. I know the same people you do. I knew them before you knew them. But is that going to happen in Tampa Bay? No.
No. Those days
And,
are over.
You know, is there a case to be made for totally protecting reproductive females and letting the males be harvested of the smaller size? You can certainly argue that.
You know, one thing I noticed when you go up to the north, and I mean the north in the States and out of the country up in Canada, you'll go to a lake and they'll have a certain size fish, like a slot, that you can keep. You'll go to another lake and that slot changes. So it could be bigger or smaller.
Correct.
It could be, and at some lakes, off limits. And I understand there's a big difference between a saltwater estuary than a lake that's, you know, controlled.
Right.
But it seems to me like they could go into areas.
I think that redfish and snook should have the same slot size. I believe that. And if you did that, then the fish would have had a chance to reproduce a couple of times before they come out of the population and go on the table.
Yeah.
So if you're harvesting, I think what was snook the last time we had it? It had to be 28 and couldn't be more than 34?
33.
33. So if you had a 28-inch redfish and a 33-inch redfish slot and a 28-inch redfish, a 28 and 33-inch snook, the females would get an opportunity to reproduce.
Yep. And you could also switch that. If science showed you that, you could change that slot to something else if there was an abundance of them, right?
Exactly.
And say no more 30 inchers.
Okay, but see, here's the issue. We have trained thousands of porpoise to eat our releases.
Oh, absolutely.
Thousands of porpoise have now been trained to eat our releases. So a dead fish is a dead fish. You are forced by law to turn a fish loose that the porpoise is laying at the stern of your boat and you're feeding that porpoise, but it's illegal to feed a porpoise. So which law do you follow?
Me?
I know which law you follow.
My law.
I'm just, I mean,
Mike's law.
exactly. But
I-
it is illegal to feed wildlife.
I've been in the situation, Dave. I looked around. I didn't see another boat. I was with a buddy of mine. I threw the big snook in the live well. We left, and I released that fish a half a mile from where I caught it because I was sick of the porpoise eating the ones we released. They ate two smaller ones. We caught a big one. He was waiting. I put it in the well and risked it and ran.
Well, again, getting new thoughts into management is very difficult to do in a state. Now, the single greatest step that the state of Florida could do to increase the number of fish for all anglers, commercial and recreational, is to declare a cormorant a pest, just like this coyote is, or your chihuahua is, whatever you want to call it. If cormorants were declared pests, which in fact they are, then it would give another sporting opportunity
to the duck hunters
to the duck hunters
or whoever.
or whoever, and it would provide millions of fish to both commercial and recreational harvesters.
Well, and I promise you this, Dave. We talk and we have a good time about shooting deer. We manage deer. There's a reason why we do it. In no management that I've ever heard of do they just not take nothing unless the population of them. I'll give you an example. Goliath grouper. They shut them down, federally protected, no studies, and they're out there eating everything on the reef.
Correct.
Okay? Same way with fish, I think, is deer. When you go up to the Northeast where they shut off hunting,
Yep.
they don't let them hunt. You got to have a shotgun 1 week a year. You know, it's just crazy rules where the harvest is never there. They're overpopulated. They're killing people by cars hitting them and everything else. You got to take them out.
And they're diseased.
Yeah.
They're-
And I think
they're
that was
diseased.
fish.
Yeah.
I think what happened is they said, hey, they didn't know what was going to go on, and I'm okay with that. Shut it down. But once we start to see fish and we see the numbers of fish, which you say you're not seeing, and I agree with that, we need to wait then. If you don't see them, you're on the water enough, and I know you don't lie. If I ask you if there's a bunch of big snook out there, you're going to look at me and go, yeah, they're loaded. Or you're going to go, nope, I ain't seen them. You tell me what, maybe not the spot, but you tell me what's going on in that water. And I believe that if you're not seeing them and the others aren't seeing them, we don't need to kill them. But there is a time to kill.
Oh, absolutely. No. Again, what Florida is trying to do is to bring fish populations back with old management approaches. Rather than say, now we have a geometrically expanded angler base. There are geometrically more people fishing than there ever have been.
A lot more pressure.
And is there a new way to achieve a quicker response? I believe there is. But you're not going to, I'm not sure who it was, it's one of our philosophers, said only a fool expects a different result from the same behavior over and over again. I can't remember who it is. I can't remember Mahoney.
Sounds good to me. I agree with you.
I think that it is time. Goliath grouper are a prime example. They could do with Goliath grouper the exact same tag deal they're doing with alligator.
Yep, that's what
They
I
could
thought.
have a lottery. You could
Generate money for the
generate
state.
money for the state. You could have a management. You could have a, I don't know whether you remember or not, but if you took the stomach contents from Goliath when you gutted them, like you gut grouper now,
Yeah.
and you retain the stomach content of Goliath, then there'd be no speculation on what they're eating.
Right.
Right now, it's speculation.
Yeah. Well, they hadn't, and that was one of the things I'd heard about it, and I don't want to get into a complaining thing because we're kind of want to be fun about this, but I heard after the first couple of years of the lionfish, they'd put more money into that lionfish study than they had Goliath, which had been shut for over 20 years. And it's like, why would you do it that way? I actually, one of the trips we went on caught about this time of year, you'll see bigger dolphin coming in out there, 120, 140 foot.
Correct.
We caught a 25 pounder, gutted it. We were filleting it, and we gutted it. And had a lionfish inside, halfway decomposed. So I know dolphins, or mahi-mahi, they eat them. So
I was going to ask you how that porpoise tasted.
yeah, I've never had porpoise.
Well, you
before.
said-
I've had pelican.
You said
pelican's
dolphin.
kind of greasy, and
Pelodactyl.
but I wouldn't. That was well beyond 7 years. That was a long time ago. Beaten quite a bit. We had Dave was with us when we did our Customer Appreciation Day here. I had 100 pounds of snook I filleted up, cooked up, and got the game wardens in here.
And
That
you
was
really
special.
wonder why I call him Butcher.
Well, the thing was, I had 10 guides that were saving fish all year for me. I wanted 100 pounds of snook to cook and give away, completely legal. Wanted my customers to eat good snook. And boy, it drew the attention of the undercovers guys. They came in here poking around and asking questions. Of course, they had a big plate of food, and they found out we were giving it away. There ain't no problem with giving it away, and see y'all later. Food was good. That was a 3-day event there.
Right on the edge of that tightrope.
Yeah, but I had the 10 guys that were here with me. They looked at him and said, we called him. Henry Edwards, old blind mullet. I had a crew back then, Rubio. It was a wrecking crew. I wouldn't, Dave would come over here and we'd fish that downtown partnership, and boy, he was on our territory. He was a surfer boy over there playing on the coast, launching at O'Neill's and fishing all that clean water, and then he comes over here and gonna stomp our butts on our own river. And Dave would never even leave that old tournament there. It was always nasty. It seemed like October, and everybody would haul butt 20 miles, getting pounded to death. He'd sit there by 3 or 4 docks at Harbor Island and win the whole thing. Happened more than once.
I remember one morning, had Kelly Ring from Fox 13 on boat, and we were fishing under the Hendry docks.
Yep.
Kelly Ring caught 21 snook. Before we were waiting on Kelly's husband to finish some sort of a business deal. Kelly had 21 snook, and that was funny. Funny story, because Eddie, he'd been at the Calcutta, or the angler meeting the night before,
right?
And there was a $10 or $20 pot for the redfish with the most spot. Eddie didn't put in.
How many
We
spots?
picked him up at Jackson's. I backed up. I nosed the boat under the Platte Street Bridge. The very first bait we throw under the Platte Street Bridge gets blasted, and Eddie catches a redfish with 21 spots.
And wasn't in
the Calcutta.
Wasn't in that side bet for it. It happens. This year in Key West, the Key West Marlin tournament, big, I don't know what kind of boat it was, some kind of big fancy custom boat, got into this tournament and actually won, caught very few fish, any of the boats in the Marlin tournament this year. Well, Bill Curry did it good enough. He caught, I think he was in second place. I don't know this for sure, but I know the big boat wasn't in the Calcutta, won the tournament. And I think number 2, which was Curry's boat, got the big check out of the Calcutta because he was in it. Always get in the Calcutta. Bet on yourself. You're already there. You got to, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that your philosophy?
Yeah.
Well, Dave, it's been a good time talking to you, man. I'm glad you came out here today and shared some of the stories. There's so many more.
There are a lot of stories, Mike, we haven't even touched now.
I don't even know if we can talk about.
There's some dark side stories that we haven't even touched.
Yeah, we have to censor those.
You'd have to have Butler and Boyd sitting over against the real
next
display.
to me. Yeah, I've had a good time, that's for sure, and I've had a lot of good times with you, Dave. And,
that's the value of life.
Right.
Anybody thinks it's a paycheck is just really missing out on it. It's
I agree, man.
It's your friends, and it's the experiences that you can have with your friend that you just don't tell people about, because they're gonna think you're lying.
That's right. Now go ahead.
No, I mean that's a real value of life to me.
I 100% agree. Dave was the guy who taught me that you can run wide open to a no combustion sign, and right before you get even with the sign, you shut your motor off and coast in. That's completely legal. Am I right, Dave?
It is.
Yeah, he's won that battle. Well, we're done for tonight. We appreciate y'all listening in. Thanks a lot, Captain Dave Marquette. Look him up. Facebook, Instagram, his website. Great guy to fish with and a great all-around guy. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mike.